Welcome, everyone.
About damn
How's
time.
everyone doing? First, I have to apologize today. It was my fault. I have been traveling these last 2 days. I am actually in Morocco right now. And well, everything that could go wrong actually went wrong with my videos. I had recorded 2 videos and the battery of the microphone was dead. And so I had a massive delay with workflow. And then my phone just died on the street. So I couldn't find my hotel, and Versan was waiting me on the call since yesterday almost. So I want to apologize. That's on me. And I want to welcome everyone. How's everyone doing today? How are you doing, Versan? Are you too upset with me?
I'm not upset. I mean, I'm just glad you're here. For a second, I got concerned. I wasn't sure what really happened. But you're usually very punctual, so this is okay. As long as
Well, that's fine. That's fine. Well, we do have a lot to talk about. I have been seeing the markets when I was with 2% battery, and I got notifications that the markets were moving up. So I know there has been some changes in the markets in the last couple of hours. I do have a list of topics that we want to talk about today. And perhaps we want to talk about this last declaration of Donald Trump about, I think he even mentioned the Bretton Woods, right?
yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and start. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, let's apologize about being a bit late, but more importantly, I do want to clarify the reason why we space these discussions is because it gives us real time to truly digest and understand all the information coming out. And there's so much material to cover, and it is overwhelming. The important thing is really not to jump to conclusion, but to take a step back, try to think critically, analyze the data, and ask the questions, why are all these events happening simultaneously? And of course, we've been discussing the trajectory of these outcomes for a very long time, but trying our best to focus really on the bigger picture. That kind of allows us to connect the dots in ways that most snapshots or fragmented reports can't really do. So the whole approach of spacing these conversations out, and just to get some clarity out there, is that we talk about these things in between these sessions, but it's really to gather as much information as we can to make it digestible. Digestible, not just for ourselves, but for everyone else. And it really helps us avoid misinterpretation or hype-driven speculation. Now, yes, Ido, it's very important. I told you this was going to be an important discussion because a number of critical things happened. And on top of all of this, geopolitical tensions have certainly intensified. We have been seeing some unusual movements in the markets, political figures that have massive influence over global economic narratives like Donald Trump. They made some very important statements, and it's worth analyzing. Donald Trump recently spoke about what he referred to as a Bretton Woods moment. And it's interesting because it's very similar to the discussions that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said recently before he got nominated for his position, saying that we need a Bretton Woods moment, a realignment of the Bretton Woods. So for context, many people don't know this, Ido, but the Bretton Woods moment, the original Bretton Woods moment, was forged shortly after World War II. It really established the United States dollar as the global reserve currency, and it cemented the financial system that allowed the United States to dominate global trade and capital flows. In my opinion, and based on everything we know today, is that it's a tool. It's a weapon, you could say, the dollar, to project influence and at the same time to accumulate massive amounts of wealth at the expense of financial instability, at the expense of other nations and the citizens themselves. So with this new Bretton Woods moment, that signals a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, that a global monetary system reset is approaching. And this is a very powerful statement, Ido, like we talked about, because it confirms what many of us have been observing for many years now. And all the conditions and things we're going to talk about today are just really the convergence for this fundamental shift in global financial systems and global financial flows. And no one can time it, to be honest, precisely. And we're not going to try to time it, but it's just the conditions and the indicators are everywhere for those paying attention. So happy to dig in deeper with you on this.
Versan, when we talk about the Bretton Woods, going back to 1944, if I'm not mistaken, back there the US dollar was backed by gold, and that was a whole different approach. We know that Nixon actually detached the US dollar from precious metals, specifically by gold. And just this week, you shared some articles with me, and I see that one more time it's trending. XRP being, gold being tokenized on the XRP ledger. And I think this is a massive opportunity for us to make some comments since we start hearing about Bretton Woods. And usually this doesn't happen randomly. When politicians share insights and they choose specific words, usually they are getting the subconscious mind of the masses ready for transformation. And I think Donald Trump has chosen to use these words for a reason. It comes in a time that gold keeps making new all-time highs. I am in Morocco, and by the way, a couple of hours ago, I went to a shop. I wanted to buy some silver, and I was told that they were running out of silver, so they didn't have any silver coins, any bracelets made of silver. So that can also signal scarcity of precious metals right now. We also have been seeing that central banks accumulated large sums of gold, breaking records. They were the greatest net sellers of gold back in the 80s and the 90s, of course, as a consequence of the US dollar not being backed by gold anymore since 1973, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me the dates. I am terrible with dates, by the way, but just the general concept. And I think right now, with gold back on the trend, with central banks accumulating large sums of gold, first they must be preparing for a currency reset. That's inevitable. And second, they must be preparing for the intersection of blockchain technology and precious metals. And inevitably, that has to happen or on the XRP ledger or on Stellar blockchain. Those are the two blockchains that are aligned with financial institutions that can support such a large volume of tokenization on chain. Do you want to make some comments on that, Versan, especially about gold being tokenized on the XRP ledger?
Yeah, we'll get deeper into this shortly here in a minute, but it was inevitable. It was going to happen anyways. They wouldn't be buying gold for no reason, right? It's not because it's a shiny object. They're buying it because they realize that the dollar is finished and you can sugarcoat it any way you'd like. There's a historic surge across commodities, gold, silver pushing into new all-time highs. Even platinum is, I mean, it's sitting, far below where it should be relative to the inflation and what's happening in the financial system. So gold is a commodity trend. It's confirmed at this point. Silver is simply following it. Platinum, other assets across the board are lagging. Now, the historical context is more important. It means, first of all, it has a lot more room to run. Okay. I'm not going to really predict something here, but I do believe we're going to see a $6,000 gold price this year. I think we're going to see a $100 silver price, and I think a $3,000 platinum price. And this is not, again, speculation. The reason I'm saying this is because if you look at the mathematical outcome about the conditions that we're living in right now, a collapsing debt-based system, collapsing confidence in fiat currencies, a global monetary structure that is being forced to reset at this point. And historically, when metals move like this, it's not because people suddenly woke up and decide, hey, I'm going to own some gold. It's because the plumbing of the financial system is breaking. It's a signal. And gold, silver, and platinum are not really rising. It's the currencies that, the underneath currencies, the dollar, other fiat, it's falling, right? And that distinction is everything. So as fiat money is continuously being devalued at a pace that's faster than you can earn it, and that's really what we're all going through right now together, everybody in this community. Okay, we're We're working harder and harder for less and less. And by the time the money gets in your bank account and you're able to pay your bills, the inflation reports are so much higher. And that's why capital is fleeing into hard assets. So when the unit of account itself, which is the dollar, is unstable, then the entire system of pricing and settlement starts to crack. And that's what we're seeing right now. And that's just a piece of it. If I may also elaborate on why Trump is criticizing the Federal Reserve now, this is another signal. Attacking the Fed is essentially a critique of what we've been doing. It's the fact that the banking system, the institutions, and the elite families that have controlled the global financial system for decades, that confidence is dead. In both government, political class, the central banking, it's gone. And it's important to remind everybody that the Federal Reserve and the central banks alike, they were always designed to kind of collapse under the weight of its own purchasing power of its debt. And that's what we're seeing happening right now. So 99% of the dollar is dead, in my opinion, the purchasing power. And you combine that with record inflation, you combine that with all the structural instability, which is baked into the system. And then the narrative and the Fed is less as a revelation to me. And it's more about the acknowledgement of a collapse that was already coming anyways. So I don't think this is new. I think it's been planned. I think it's been anticipated for those who understand how the structural weaknesses of fiat currencies and debt-based systems function. Go ahead. Sorry. No,
Versanity, I was not supposed to interrupt you. I just wanted to share this, but it was not supposed to be on the screen yet. Okay. But you know this video. I actually got this from you. You shared this one on Instagram. So can I just play it for a while? I think it's very unique.
Yeah, I'll mute my mic.
That's perfect. I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to play it.
Your overnight account balances have been updated. Time to start a productive day. Final notice, your account balance is below 500. You need 50 credits by the end of the day to avoid automatic eviction. If you have missed work due to illness, you must provide a doctor's note to reclaim your credits.
Any extra credits? Please.
Tensions are high today, with more people planning to join the Citizens Against Digital Control protest. Remember, the government knows who you are at all times. Resisting is not worth the consequences. All of their newest social credit systems are designed to keep you and your families safe and efficient.
Authorities seized a record balance of an individual's credits, citing excessive hoarding.
Traffic violation detected. 7 miles per hour over the limit. 75 credits have been automatically deducted.
You have to be fucking kidding me.
Yep, you got the flu. Your blood work shows a significant iron deficiency. I recommend incorporating more red meat into your diet.
Dr. Jones, your taxes were not filed and have been automatically deducted with late fees. Your medical license has been revoked.
Oh, hell nah, I filed an extension.
Purchase denied. Monthly red meat allowance exceeded. Try mealworms instead.
Can you guys please let me through?
Attention. Unauthorized political gathering detected. Participants' access to financial services has been suspended. Due to the speeding infraction, your car will be immobilized for 3 days.
Fuck you! Take your surveillance policies and rot in hell!
You've earned 50 bonus credits for reporting your neighbor's hateful misconduct. This content exceeds your current social credit tier. May we suggest citizen responsibility? Sarah, open the door. You have been identified by the authorities. Don't resist. Don't resist. Don't resist.
Very powerful.
Yeah, I got this from Versan's Instagram. I recommend everyone to give him a follow on Instagram. He's sharing a lot of hidden gems that he's not sharing on YouTube. But the main point of this video, I don't intend to spread fear by sharing this video. It's more about awareness. We have to understand there is a financial transformation happening right now. I would call it a financial reset. And as Versan explained before, labor is not outpacing inflation no longer. That's no longer happening. And this is not a specific issue with America. As you guys know, I travel a lot, probably 20 countries just in 2025. And everywhere I go and I talk to people, they all have the same issue. So it's a global issue. And we have to understand that this transformation has at the epicenter blockchain technology. So right now, I only see two choices. I mean, or you're going to take part of this transformation as an early investor, or you're going to become a late adopter, just as in the video we just watched. There is a series that I recommend anyone to watch. It's called Black Mirror. That's available, I guess, on Netflix. And I think it's more like predictive programming. It's not only a series, I call it a documentary. And you can see a lot of insights about blockchain technology. I mean, if you don't know what blockchain technology is about, you might watch Black Mirror and you will not even realize it. But they are giving a lot of hidden hints on Black Mirror, and that has to be with the intersection with blockchain technology. Versan, do you want to make some comments on this video?
Yeah, it's not a conspiracy. I didn't know we were going to play that, and that's okay. It's important that we did, to remind people and reiterate the slippery slope that they were trying to describe there. Listen, I've been paying very close attention for now it's 8 years going into 2026. And for a very long time, I've been warning about this. And I've been attacked, I've been ridiculed, and it doesn't bother me. I don't give up. I keep trying. And there is a lot of excitement in this ecosystem. I used to be there, right? And I still am to a degree. But there are also very real dangers that most people are simply not willing to confront. One of them, for instance, and how are we going to get to a central bank digital currency? And I'm happy to elaborate on this because a good friend of mine, Brad Kimes, put out a very interesting video today. Bendel and I, we didn't go into too much detail when we responded on X to it. But one of the biggest, and this is an aggressive push, how we're going to get to what you saw over there, is institutional custody. And a lot of people are going to be like, what the hell is he talking about? And I'm glad you asked. But institutional custody, the aggressive push into institutional custody, and it's simply being framed as the new standard. People are being told that this is progress, that this is going to bring safety, that this is going to bring legitimacy and stability. But what you're not being told is who actually controls the institutional custody, and those institutions, ultimately, who do they answer to? I'm going to tell you the same thing I told you a few weeks ago. The brokers, the custodians, and all of these middlemen fall under the regulatory bodies. What does this mean? Those regulatory bodies answer to the very same financial powerhouses and power structures that have actually been abusing and extracting wealth and privacy from the public for decades. Yes, BlackRock, JP Morgan, all the Wall Street executives, the very same people who built a system that was privatized for profits and socialized losses, okay? Now, we're in an environment where people are just handing over their digital assets straight back to them without even realizing it. They believe that they're protecting themselves, when in reality, they're walking right into the very same trap that crypto was supposed to eliminate. The push alone to remove self-custody is not accidental. It's freaking deliberate. And how naive people are that they can't see this. When people hold their assets themselves, something I've been an advocate for years and lost a lot of friends in this ecosystem because of that. When you give the custody to the institutions, those assets legally belong to the custodians. It's that simple. You may be given access here and there. You may be given an interface, right? Like an exchange or something along those lines. You may be told that you can withdraw, but you no longer own the asset in the way the technology was designed to allow you to. So the moment regulations change, and we're going to get into that here in a bit. I told you guys this was an important conversation. The moment regulations change, which they always do, you're not going to have any protection, mark my words. And we've seen this before. Assets will become classified as either strategic, and they're going to get restricted, they're going to get frozen, they're going to get seized. And if something like XRP or another settlement asset becomes strategically important due to the financial system or to a government, anyone holding it through institutional custody is already exposed in ways you don't even realize. So the technology was built to eliminate the need for middlemen, not to strengthen them. And that's what we're doing here. It's the truth. Distributed ledgers, cryptographic keys, and peer-to-peer settlement exists so individuals like you and I can have sovereignty over our own wealth. That was the entire point. And when you surrender that, you're not becoming safer, you're becoming more dependent. And people are going to try to rationalize this as much as they want. I'm going to see in the comments later on this evening. They can say it feels more comfortable, it feels more regulated and more professional, but comfort and convenience is exactly how people get trapped. And I've seen this over and over before. And I've said this for years. If you give up self-custody, you give up your sovereignty. And once sovereignty is gone, you are at the mercy of the policies, the politicians, and the institutions that really don't give a shit about you. So it's not scaring people. I'm done trying to convince people because people simply don't want to hear it. But the reality, this was always part of the plan, and it's happening right in front of us. And very few people agree with me on this, and those are people I actually look up to. So this is slowly becoming the norm. And even though it makes no sense at all, typically things that don't make sense become the norm, if you've noticed. Okay? So you got to be very cautious. This is not what the technology was meant to do. It's the exact opposite. So you're actually giving control away.
I'm 100% with you on this, Versan. And people have to understand. I even see here in the comments, someone just said they can seize your bank account and they can seize your funds. But that's not inherently true when we are talking about blockchain technology. So back to the screen here. Oh my goodness. How to remove this? Okay, we are back. Full screen. Versan, can you help me to put us back here?
Yeah, what happened?
Yeah, okay, now it's back. So I want people to understand the distinction because, yes, they can seize your cryptocurrencies as far as if you have your cryptocurrencies in an exchange or if you are giving it away for institutional custody, just like Versan says. What happens if they have a court order against you and your funds are under institutional custody? Just think for a second, okay? The whole point of blockchain technology, of course, we know that it went very far from the original idea of Satoshi Nakamoto, which I have some comments to make on Satoshi in a second, but was to create a permissionless system, a decentralized network. That was the original intention for BTC, which we know that it has failed as a currency. But XRP is everything Satoshi has ever dreamed for BTC. But you need to understand, if you have XRP sitting in a cold wallet, nobody can seize your XRP. It's technically impossible to reverse any transactions on the ledger as far as you are holding XRP. Now, what they have done to comply with regulation is that they have activated on the XRP ledger a feature that is called, it's called the clawback feature. So assets issued on top of the XRP ledger, such as stablecoins, such as tokenized assets on the ledger, those are subject to the clawback feature. That means that if they have to comply with regulation, if there is a court order against you, they can actually reverse transactions on the ledger, of course, if there is a given reason for that. So the best way to be protected, and that's why I say so many times that it's almost like a paradox, because the XRP ledger in one hand is going to be the floor for central bank digital currencies. It's going to be the main feature that central banks digital currency are going to be utilizing, the main technology. But on the other hand, it can also provide you a way out of the system, because once you have XRP, it's like nobody can stop you from sending XRP from A to B. You can pay for goods and services using XRP. You don't need to necessarily use stable coins, which are a form of central bank digital currencies, just rebranded. So it's almost as if we can literally create a parallel economy that runs on XRP. I can send money to my son. I can pay for, let's say I need a video editor for my channel. I can pay him using XRP, and then he can actually purchase another service or goods using XRP. And that's almost creates a parallel economy that nobody can really stop. How are they going to tax you for transacting on the XRP ledger? How are they going to seize your assets if that's technically impossible? Now, the moment you convert your XRP to stable coins, then you are at risk, because as I said, there is a clawback feature that if there is a court order, they can come and execute that against you. If you have the XRP on exchange, it's even worse, because you don't even own the keys for that XRP, and that's the exact same thing that happens with institutional custody. So more and more, I have the feeling that institutional custody is a bait. I mean, if they know this cryptocurrency is going to skyrocket in price, it's going to make a 10x, a 100x, don't be so naive to believe that they wouldn't make everything they could to get as much XRP back as they can, right? Yeah. Now, there is a limit to how much XRP they can get from the public, because, of course, as I said, if you have the XRP on cold wallets and you own the keys, that's bulletproof, nobody can touch it. But what's the percentage of holders that actually have the XRP on cold wallets that's not going to give it away for institutional custody? And that's exactly why I think it's so important to be ahead of the curve. And when sometimes being ahead means being behind, because a lot of people are thinking ahead and thinking of ways on how you can capitalize on your XRP, and you want to try new staking platforms, and you want to generate yield, and sometimes rushing out might be your worst enemy. That's why I have a very conservative approach when it comes to holding XRP in cold wallets. I think the less you interact with your XRP nowadays, I think the better it is. You're going to have less chances of falling for scams, for frauds. AI right now is out of control. They are coming with very sophisticated methods to try to scam people and try to get people to send their XRP. So I think the less you interact with your wallet, the best it is.
I totally agree with you. And guys, let's not do that here in the comments, please. Like, it's not about attacking one individual or the other. I think there are valid concerns on both sides, but that's the problem here. We can continuously debate the nuances and the conjecture around these things, okay? But if you look at the frameworks, for instance, we have a problem there, okay? For instance, let's just bring this back to the beginning. A lot of people may be new to this ecosystem, and like, we have to talk about what is decentralization, okay? Decentralization is, like you said, Edo, the best way to describe it, a parallel economy. I was explaining it to my wife earlier because I got frustrated about what Brad Kimes was talking about today, because he raised some very valid concerns. And the truth is, the majority of the entire ecosystem is not decentralized. People like to talk about decentralization, but let's break down the facts. The reality is it's nothing but centralized. Example, first of all, you need an internet provider. That's not decentralized. You need to have an internet proxy. You need exchanges. You need institutional custodians. You need on-ramps. You need off-ramps. You need compliance gateways. That's the regulatory bodies, okay? This means the system is already controlled. people just can't accept that for some reason. And it's so interesting because when you start to look at all of this, you start to realize, yes, we do have the power to bring a parallel economy, but people don't have the intellect to do it. They don't realize it because we're treating it as a speculative investment. Okay. Now, if everyone was on the XRP ledger using it in this parallel economy, I guarantee you the price would be higher. That's for sure. It would be a self-sustaining economy where wealth is constantly redistributed amongst XRP holders, providing services to each other. That's how.
Which more people would join the ecosystem. That's exactly. More people would join the ecosystem and drive the price up.
Yeah, because it's freedom, right? That is the truth about crypto blockchain, but we're giving it all away. And the funny thing is, you talked about stable coins. Now, we've talked about stable coins here on this podcast many times, all right? In fact, we were very early on it. You got to understand that the Clarity Act and the Genius Act are two different things, but they complement each other in many different ways. What's become very clear is that the Genius Act was as a mechanism to digitize dollars into stable coins. They're not so stable. But the truth is they were designed to solve one problem and one problem only, to find a new source of liquidity and a new class of buyers for U.S. treasuries. Because as you all recall here, central banks are no longer buying treasuries as the way they used to. They're buying gold instead. That shift alone should tell you everything you need to know about where confidence really is. So rather than forcing central banks now to keep funding U.S. debt by buying T-bills, they've used the Genius Act to allow the stablecoin issuers to back their tokens with T-bills, which quietly keeps the dollar alive, props it up, and props up the system while the central bankers are free to continue buying gold. And this is how they've been stretching the lifeline of the U.S. fiat system, the dollar, without the public realizing all these structural shifts happening right beneath the surface. And that's why you're seeing stablecoin issuers and financial institutions accumulating gold. For instance, Tether. Tether's been buying gold. Yeah, it's not random. It's a hedge against the very system that is supposed to be supporting their infrastructure. And that's why it's so funny, because these institutions, they move in coordination. Now, this might be interesting. What if Ripple's buying gold too, and nobody's talking about it? What if they are? I'm not saying they are, right? But let me tell you something. All institutions move in coordination. It's true. Okay. Even with the silver market, when it got squeezed, they moved in coordination. Okay. They don't have to telegraph their strategy to the public. So people, when they say, where's the evidence? Use your head. Okay. It's about bridging the dots and doing the research in separate ecosystems and kind of figuring things out for yourself. Okay. Now, they always operate in the same macro framework. That much is clear. When one major institution or player has to pivot towards hard assets, the others are going to follow. And this is the same damn thing that's been going on in the digital ecosystem. We've seen Ripple, Stellar, and a few others quietly consolidating the digital infrastructure layer while the public remains focused on meme coins and charts. And that's what the Genius Act and the Clarity Act are supposed to do. The Genius Act keeps the old system alive so they can drag it on as long as they can, so the Clarity Act can build the new one and kind of solidify these rules and regulations that we're talking about.
Nicely said, Versan. And I love how you mentioned Tether. I mean, they have been buying large sums of gold. If that doesn't tell you something is happening behind the scenes. And by the way, without mentioning too much, but I got the information back in 2023 that Ripple had made a proposal to acquire a company that was tokenizing, working on tokenizing gold on the XRP ledger. Okay, I'll not give names, I'll not say specifically which company, but I can confirm I got this information in first hand. So there is an interest from Ripple in gold. That's also something everyone should consider. And there is a question that I would love to answer. And someone asked, why can't we actually run a parallel economy on BTC? And I want to make this very clear because it's extremely important that people understand.
Volatile. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, volatility is one of the reasons that you can't run a parallel economy on BTC, and the second one is high transaction fees and network congestion. So if everyone on Earth, like the 8 billion people on Earth, would try to utilize BTC, they could only perform, mathematically talking, they could only perform about 3 transactions in their lifetime. More important to that is the fact that you can't pay for a coffee. Like, you can't just send BTC from A to B. Of course, you're going to send Satoshis, but you can't buy coffee with BTC. The high transaction fees are going to be like, you're going to pay like $30 to buy $2 espresso. So it makes it very difficult. Bitcoin can't scale. It's simply an outdated Bitcoin that doesn't function as a currency. So you can't use it for day-to-day usage. The other thing that can be utilized for day-to-day usage is called XRP, because it's a scalable blockchain. You have low transaction fees. It takes only 3 seconds to send basically unlimited amounts of money on the XRP ledger. I see you brought something to the screen, Versan. You want to make some comments on the golden ratio? I think that's about gold and silver. What's that about?
Yeah, I'm simply complimenting what you said over there, because everything about, for instance, XRP Ripple was designed intentionally. You know how logos are. You've seen it with Chevron, with Coca-Cola. If you mirror it, you see like the Baphomet. That's why you shouldn't drink sodas. Anyways, the logos are always done intentionally, right? Now, the Ripple logo, interestingly, follows the golden ratio as well. That's a mathematical constant for many people who don't know. It's found in nature, it's found in art, it's found in architecture, and it basically symbolizes, in my opinion, the balance between scalability and whatever is coming next, or something along those lines. Okay, I'm trying to get a little creative here, but whatever it is, XRP was certainly engineered for it. What other things I wanted to share with you is that complementing some of the other things you just said there is that the Triskelion, thank you guys. There are a few handful of networks that actually matter. And I think Ripple, Stellar, Hedera, SHX, which is also tied to the clearing ecosystem of Ripple and Stellar. Ripple's been investing in their infrastructure for a long time. So anyways, these are the networks that have spent many years building the regulatory relationships, which are important to a degree, the compliance frameworks, the integration around everything. Sadly, identity systems, settlement infrastructure, they're not really designed for retail traders, but it could be, right? We could use these technologies in that parallel economy. Now, at the end of the day, though, everything is going to come down to settlement. And the reason the United States dollar became the reserve currency, besides World War II and Bretton Woods, it became the primary settlement asset for global trade. And whoever controls settlement controls liquidity. That's why the dollar is the most liquid asset in the world right now. I think it's deteriorating, and surely it is, because no one's holding T-bills as much as they used to. Now, whoever controls liquidity essentially controls the wealth. That dynamic is shifting very fast away from the dollar and towards a neutral settlement layer that every country, every government, every financial institution, and every individual can use. I believe that layer is XRP, not because of hype, but simply because of how the system is being built, right? And that's why I love the Clarity Act. Eventually, the Clarity Act is going to separate fact from fiction. It's going to pull a lot of influencers out of work, okay? Because there's a lot of BS in the crypto ecosystem as well. And you have to understand that the utility networks have already been chosen, okay? Most people don't want to hear this, but the same power structures, again, that run the legacy systems are designing the digital one, okay? That's why the Bank for International Settlements, the central banks, the Treasury Department, all the political administrations, they're involved in this at the highest levels of finance.
Yeah, I totally agree, Versan. And there is something very unique that's happened today. I want to be very careful on how I choose my words, but remember I did an investigation about the 80,000 dormant BTC, and basically I did that together with someone that has an on-chain school. Basically, they are 100% dedicated for on-chain investigations. And today, actually, I got a message from one of them, and apparently they managed to connect some movements from BTC to actually the early wallets of Satoshi Nakamoto. So I didn't have time to dig deeper. I actually got this message like 3 hours ago, but that's something that I am preparing for next week podcast. Of course, I'm going to choose my words very carefully. As you know, I got suspended on Twitter from sharing too much insights about the dormant BTC that was on the move. But eventually, we're going to have what I see is that BTC is going to be sacrificed. I don't see a financial system where where XRP is still going to be following BTC. I think at some point that will not make any sense. Once you are running derivatives markets, once XRP is replacing Nostro Vostro accounts, perhaps working as a world reserve currency, I give it a 0.001% chance that XRP is still going to be responding to BTC movements. Now, someone also asked here in the comments about XLM. We have spoken multiple times about XLM. Me and Versan, I think we can speak for both of us. We believe in a future of interoperability. So you need different systems to communicate with each other. So there won't be one blockchain to rule them all. Like, it's not going to be only the XRP ledger, but there will be a handful of blockchains are going to be widely adopted. I know for a fact the XRP ledger is one of them. Stellar blockchain is also an undervalued chain right now. They also have been tokenizing precious metals on Stellar. You also have Algorand, you have XDC, that I call it the Ethereum killer. It has very low transaction fees compared to Ethereum, and you can tokenize anything of value also on Stellar. So there is going to be multiple blockchains. Now, I don't see a system where BTC has any utility. I mean, we are in 2026. Nobody has been able to find a solution to actually transform blockchain, to actually scale BTC blockchain to something useful, something that you can use on a day-to-day basis. And right now, you even see the BTC Max, as they call it, a store of value. But that's also debatable. I mean, it's dropped 30% in the last couple of months. So how is that even working out for the people who bought it above $100,000 or $110,000? I think you need a generational asset like gold to call it effectively a store of value. I think that the same doesn't apply for BTC. How do you see that, Versam?
Total alignment with you. I think Bitcoin, like you said perfectly, will be sacrificed at a time of their choosing. I wrote a detailed article on this many times. You know, I have to repeat myself over and over the years, which is funny. I feel a little crazy sometimes. But the thing is, Bitcoin, there's so many, it's obvious that it's going to be used as an exit liquidity mechanism. And I think they've been funneling a lot of that wealth into other blockchains, maybe XRP, maybe other assets. But they're using it to get a lot of the wealth on chain. And what it's doing on chain is a mystery to all of us, but it's definitely being used to pull people in, and it's working effectively. So I wouldn't be surprised if it gets sacrificed to the degree of collapsing at one point at a time of their choosing. The same way I tell people that XRP will decouple when the infrastructure overrides the markets. There's a time and place for all of this. And for XRP, for instance, to fulfill its purpose, it's going to have to decouple from traditional markets and operate as its own settlement system. And that's what it really is. In reality, it already does. It's just most people simply haven't recognized it yet because they're still measuring it through a speculative lens. And that's why you see a lot of people losing their faith in it, their optimism, their conviction, simply because it's not performing well. So as I tweeted recently, the problem isn't the technology or the XRP, it's the people who are measuring it through the wrong lens. So if I was to just be blunt here, people don't understand it. It's that simple. And that's why I keep saying it's probably the most misunderstood financial asset out there, or I would say financial instrument. And this is where XRP lives. It lives at the intersection that most people will never reach because it's misunderstood. It's misunderstood across the entire financial landscape. And we've had discussions with a lot of interesting people. And many people do understand it. They see it. It's just not to the degree that we do, maybe. It's a multi-dimensional technology, you could say. That's why it's very hard for most people to understand it or figure it out. But I think at the end of the day, it's about settlement. And I explained this just a few minutes ago. Settlement is gradually going to consolidate everything. And that's what it is. If everything's being digitized or tokenized, assets, debt, commodities, securities, even attention itself has become a form of currency, which is funny. But regardless how many layers exist on top of it, value still has to be settled underneath. And that's how the system is going to perform. So gradually, I think XRP will consolidate all the money in the world. It's very messy. I get it. And I'm not the one who said this before. It's really like Catherine Austin Fitts and many others who've been, leaving breadcrumbs. But that's where you pick up the torch and run with it, figure out the missing pieces. And you have an obligation to share this with people. Because when the banks go down, and they will, because they're extremely leveraged and they're insolvent and they're not insured. I don't care what the FDIC says. They've failed many times in the past. When the banks go down, they're going to take all your money with them. I promise you that much. It's been done before. It will be done again.
I would use the same words to describe MicroStrategy and Bitcoin. I think that's also a ticking bomb that's being underlooked by the majority of people in the crypto space. And I want to bring one curiosity. I think a lot of people don't know about this, but I'm going to read here from the screen that in 2010, there was a bug on BTC network and 184 billion BTC were created out of thin air. And basically that resulted in a consensus rules change with a hard fork in the network. So I'm just pointing out that when you hear about the mainstream version of BTC, they point out this utopian version of BTC that supply cannot increase over 21 million BTC. BTC is a decentralized network, when in reality, all it takes is a 51% attack on BTC network, and basically the miners can actually converge together and actually vote for a change in the supply. They can basically decide to increase the supply way more easy than that would happen on the XRP ledger, which is basically impossible. So I feel that mainstream media is not being transparent about the real features behind who is behind Bitcoin, why they released Bitcoin in the first hand, which BTC stands for beta test coin. I think if you watch the Turning Point, you should know that by now. Some people say it's by the cheat. Yeah, that also makes sense. Versan, help me to remove this from the screen, because every time I do that, I kick us out. I don't know what's happening.
It's okay. I'll remove it.
Yeah. And well, we are getting to the last 10 minutes of the Turning Point. Versan, would you like us together to pick us some questions from the audience? Perhaps we can take these last 10 minutes to answer some questions, or if you want to bring some final topic that we might be forgetting about.
Yeah, I would love to do some questions. I mean, it's just the questions are they're not macro the way I normally look at things. Okay. I want to kind of reiterate like the Clarity Act. You got to understand that the Clarity Act is really going to be about defining who is going to be allowed to exist in the digital financial system and who is simply not. That's going to be the regulatory firewall between speculation crypto securities. That's what they really are. And institutional grade utility networks. That distinction is going to wipe out a vast majority of crypto projects because most of them do not anything. They don't do anything that a global financial system actually needs. All right. They don't regulate liquidity. They don't move liquidity. They don't settle institutional transactions. They don't integrate with compliance. They don't integrate with custody and identity, even though I disagree with custody. They don't, have anything to do with payment rails, really. They exist almost entirely inside of a speculative bubble that is simply tied to the debt market. Okay. And that's why the stock market is up. That's why Bitcoin is up. Somebody said in there, hey, Bitcoin's up. You're wrong. No, we're not wrong. We've explained this before. Bitcoin is tied to the debt market. As long as we're issuing debt, the higher asset prices are going to go. And that's something we didn't even touch on earlier, which was very important, tying it back to Trump attacking the Federal Reserve and attacking the credit card companies, for instance. Attacking the credit card companies, yeah, everyone's framing it with bold headlines that this is a good thing, this is a good thing. Yeah, I understand people need to be disciplined with money and how much they borrow, but you got to understand, most people don't have assets. They don't have savings. They live check to check. And some people live month to month, right? And the problem is, again, if you take away the credit card, if you attack the credit card companies and encourage them to lower their fees, you know what they're going to do? Very simple. They're going to withdraw credit lines from the middle class. That means a middle class that's already suffering, they're going to suffer even more. Now, this is all tied to the debt market, okay? So if they start to restrict credit, the debt market starts to collapse gradually. More people start to liquidate assets because they need that money to go pay their bills, okay? So that could be a surprise in the market, which could bring it back down. I think as long as we're issuing debt, and that's why gold went up, because it's anticipating lower rates. We got those lower rates. We're going to see lower rates again into sometime this year. And the markets are anticipating all of this, okay? And it's going to drive the market a bit higher. And that's what my brother's been saying about we're going to see a major correction in March, maybe after March. So I don't try to time these things. I really don't. I don't look at charts. Many of you know this. I understand charts. I look at them privately on my own time. But the truth is, I prepare for the macro moves and I anticipate how these moves are going to happen, okay? You could follow the banks and you're going to start to see that they are extremely leveraged. There's a lot of problems in the economy. You could sugarcoat it any way you'd like. I think you should not be in real estate right now, not actively buying real estate. What you should be doing is playing offense, and you should play a little bit of defense when you can. But you need to be owning gold, silver, other assets along those lines. And I think that's anyone that doesn't own assets, like real assets, is going to be in big trouble eventually. Eventually, this whole thing is going to implode. I'm not saying now, I don't know when, but those who own real assets, tangible commodities, and productive wealth are going to continue to see their value rise, their net worth rise, as it's worked for me very well. I've been 65% all the way back from 2019, 2020 in gold. And I've been buying gold cumulatively. I've been sharing this with the audience publicly. So every time I play these cycles, I go up and down. Long-term infrastructure, I don't touch it. Short-term, I'm always cashing out and I'm going right back into gold and silver. And playing these cycles is giving me the ability to buy assets at higher prices too. So we're going to see gold and silver really break new all-time highs again. And sadly, that's really where real wealth is dividing intentionally. And there's no middle class anymore. They are gradually falling into poverty. So it's not a time to be speculating. I think it's a time to be playing aggressively and preparing yourself for the inevitable, because things are only going to accelerate from here. And believe me, there's so much more information we can talk about here.
Nicely said, Versan. I think there is no way out of this system by holding cash. You just think about 2019. I guess the devaluation arrived to something like 200%. What you could afford, what you could buy with $100 or 100 euros or 100 pesos, basically now you can buy perhaps less than half of what you could afford before. So you need to be protecting yourself with precious metals. We have been talking about precious metals, especially Versan. Even before I was talking about gold, I was getting my information about precious metals on his channel. So we were talking about this before it was making headlines. We were talking about XRP before XRP was making headlines. And basically, if you just been holding to fiat currencies, you just continuously losing money. And this is not even me exaggerating. I mean, when you do your groceries, you just notice that by every week things keep increasing, and they increase a bit this week, a bit next week, and by the time you notice, the things have doubled in price, and that's how the things have been happening in the last 3 and 4 and 5 years. Another thing to notice: someone asked me if they can frozen your cold wallet or actually blacklist your XRP wallet address. Just to clarify, that's not possible. There is no central authority that can do it. But of course, if you have XRP on exchanges, then it doesn't belong to you. And in this case, yes, they can confiscate your XRP that is sitting on exchanges, not your XRP sitting in cold wallets. There was another question. Yeah, you were about to comment something?
Yeah, I mean, I want to give people some optimism because, listen, again, I'm not being negative, guys. Okay, there are some facts here that we have to recognize. This is all about control. It's about sovereignty. It's about how human beings are going to be allowed to exist inside of an economic system. And that is why when everything starts to feel chaotic, as it already is, the one thing you can always fall back on is real tangible assets. Okay. Gold and silver have always represented true sovereignty, and they are referenced in the Bible. They are referenced in the Quran. They are referenced in virtually every ancient text message. You know why? Because they're not someone else's liability. They are not a promise. That is money in the purest form. That's God's money, as they would like to call it. Okay. Do you know why it's been systemically taken away from the public over all the years? And our freedoms have not just been eroded or socially and politically. They're gradually putting all the mechanisms in place to take away our freedom. Okay. And the scary thing is we have given them so much control without even realizing it. And you have to remember, they've been doing this financially because money is the foundation of society. This is how we interact with each other. This is how we exchange value with each other and how we survive. When the money is weaponized, the people are controlled. Okay. And that's why I keep saying, if we're going to be moving into this digital financial system, it must be anchored in something real. And there is a whole discussion we've had many times about this, but that's going to be true sovereignty. In a digital economy only exists if there is convertibility, something Lynette Zhang explained very well to me. If you can convert your XRP into gold, if you can convert into silver later on down the road, into real assets, then you have preserved your freedom inside of a digital world. And that's what distributed ledger technology actually makes possible. That's what tokenization can do. Okay. But you have the power structures that are trying to use this to weaponize it against us, to control our sovereignty. Now, a system where real wealth is not trapped inside of banks and vaults, but can move freely, then you have something that is transparent and fair. That's how you build a financial order that redistributes power back to the people instead of concentrating it in the hands of a few. And these are psychopaths at the top, okay? And, you know, that is why it's so important for everyone to kind of spread that message. Maybe share this video if you're comfortable doing that. Okay, it's not about the headlines. It's not about using bold capital letters and empty narratives and no critical analysis behind it. It's about real structure, real conversation, real analysis, and please, real solutions. Okay, and that's why we have a very small circle here. I've tried my best for years, Edo, you know this, to network outside of my circle. I've tried to collaborate with people. I've tried to bring people together, but very few people are willing or able to see what I've been talking about, to see the system for what it truly is. So, you know, I've never worked harder in my life, Edo, to do what I believe is right for the family, for my community, and for everyone who listens to this podcast, because I truly believe that, you know, if we really do raise our collective consciousness with the right context behind it, then the veil lifts for what it truly is. And that's how you're going to change the world. That's how you're going to build a better future for your children and your grandchildren.
Couldn't say it any better, Versan. And I'm happy we kept our circle small in these last years. I think this was the best thing we could have ever. You see what's happening outside, and I don't want to give names here, but people know what we are talking about. And of course, we are above 1 hour. I think next week we have a lot to talk again. I want to go deep on these BTC movements from Satoshi wallets. I'll make my best to not get our channels taken down, Versan, so don't worry about that. I'm going to put it in very selected words so people can understand. And also, thank you, everyone. Let us know in the comments what you want us to talk next week so we can actually prepare for the live streaming. It helps us with ideas of topics. We are a bit over the time. I want to send a special thanks to the audience. Drop your location in the comments, so that also help us with the algorithm. Is going to deliver the live streaming for more people. And yeah, from my side, that's all. Versan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, a few things. I'll try and make it quick. First of all, yes, the XRP price was engineered to function at a very high price because of the role it plays. Like I said earlier, its design is multidimensional. I think most people still won't understand that. You don't, it's not for everybody, okay? When you start to look at these systems. I am not a mathematician, but I am a systems thinker, and I know how to break structures down. I know how to examine how they function, see what they're doing, where they're going. And that's what we try to do here. We really try to anticipate things before they happen. We're not predicting anything. We're not looking into the future, or we're not communicating with God like some people say. It's simple trend forecasting. Okay, if you look at the data, it's pretty damn clear where things are going. And yeah, I just want to say thank everybody, you know, for supporting all the work we've been doing. Helping
and Versan, congratulations on the 100,000 subscribers.
Yes,
that's what's huge.
Very much for that, all of you. I really, really appreciate it. You know, I wish we got here a long time ago, honestly, because the message is more important now than ever. So again, thank you for standing with us and trying to make sense of, you know, the world that's changing faster than we can realize.
And yeah, trust me, we put a lot of hard work behind the scenes. Well, first I want to apologize. I was very late today. I also apologize to you, Versan. I was in Portugal yesterday. I am in Morocco today, and I'm going to be in Athens by the time the sun shines tomorrow. So I have been traveling a lot, and I had some technical issues. It took me about 7 hours to edit my last video. You might not believe it. The video has 8 minutes. It's insane, everything that's happened. So I want to apologize for being late. I had some technical issues from my side today. The microphone ran out of battery. Well, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong, and traveling, it adds an extra stress to my body. I mean, it gets tiring sometimes. So I'm going to be my best. Next week, I'm going to be back to my home in Athens. So I'm definitely going to be on time, but you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to be 5 minutes before the time. And yeah, thank you, everyone. We're going to see you next week.
Yeah. Take care, everyone. Thank you very much. Bless you.